Morning. We are going to start now a brand new Chelek Chof Gimel. This is, of course, as we mentioned, the part of the project of Likkutei Sichos. The idea is that the entire Chabad world and outside Chabad world are all together learning two Sichos every single week. And in addition to the Achdus that takes place, Baruch Hashem, every week, there's also tremendous resources and tremendous shiurim, not only my shiur, but there's plenty of other shiurim, very, very solid, good shiurim out there on the website, Project Likkutei Sichos. And yesterday we finished Chelek Yud Zayin, the entire Chelek, and now we're going to start Chelek Chof Gimel. Parshas Bamidbar, Aleph. If in Pasuk, Eile Kruyei Ha'eda Nesiyei Mates Avesem Roshi Alpha Yisrael Heim. The Pasuk says that they were, when it came to the counting of the Yidden, so it says that they were summoned. They were called. Who was called? The congregation of the princes of the tribes of the fathers. That means Eile Kruyei Ha'eda. The Kriya Ha'eda was called Nesiyei Mates Avesam. This was the head of the tribes. Roshi Alpha Yisrael Heim, the heads of the thousands of Klal Yisrael. So it simply means that the Nesiyim were called by the counting. So Rashi quotes the words. These were the summoned ones of the congregation. When it's Mefarish, and he explains Hanikroim the Choldover Chashivas Shebe'eda. Rashi says they were summoned for every important congregational matter. So every time Moshe Rabbeinu had to make a decision or there was like a congregational matter, these Nesiyei Hamates were summoned. So what does it mean when Rashi says Eile Kriyei Eda Hanikrayim L'chol Davar Shechashiv Shebe'eda? They were summoned for every important congregational matter. What does that mean? So the Rebbe says, in Mefarshim we find Mitzvei Sugi Perushim Kavanas Rashi. In Mefarshim we find two explanations on what exactly Rashi is saying. What is Rashi coming to? The pasuk says Eile Kriyei Ha'eda. Rashi says they were summoned for every important congregational matter. What does that mean? What is Rashi coming to Bavarn? So Aleph Rashi kum sheil sein as mizolnit lernen as Kriyei Ha'eda meint azei rufen zusammen de Eda. So first thing is Rashi says that Rashi wants to negate the suggestion that the summoned ones of the congregation should be interpreted to mean that these princes were the ones who summoned the Klal Yisrael. In other words, you would think Eile Kriyei Ha'eda, that who summoned Klal Yisrael is Nesiyei Ha'eda, is the princess. So therefore, Nazei kemen nit lernen varum das is nit chshivus von Nesiyim. It's not. You can't say that this is the pshat because this role was not the reason that the princes were choshev. Princes were not choshev because they got to call Klal Yisrael. So that's what I would think that Eile Kriyei Ha'eda means. So therefore Rashi says, what does it mean? Hanikrayim l'chol davar chashiv shebe'eda, they were the summoned ones for every important congregational matter. That's one way to learn. Beis, the lashon Kriyei Ha'eda is mashma azei veren gerufen fun der Eda. Now, the expression Kriyei Ha'eda may have implied that the princes were summoned by Klal Yisrael, by the nation. Was thus pas nit zu sagen auf Nesiyim azei zen ze gerufene und die Eda sein die was kreidem geuser. Now, you can't say that it's like improper to say that the princes were the ones summoned by who? By Klal Yisrael. Like Kilo, as the nation has some authority over the princes. So that's one way to learn it. One way to learn it, that's what Rashi is saying. That if without Rashi I would say Eile Kriyei Ha'eda, either I could touch up that they were the ones that summoned, but that's not why they were chashuv. Or they were summoned by Klal Yisrael, which also makes no sense. Because it's much more like the Eda is higher than the Nesim. So the Rebbe is Rashi Parshas das meint Hanikroim l'chol davar chashiv shebe'eda. They were in Taka gerufen efsher oichai de ha'eda So therefore Rashi explains that what's the correct interpretation is that they were summoned to every important congregational matter. They were actually summoned, and even possibly through the Eidah, though only in like like for advice and for in like a troubleshooting role for any important faced by the congregation. So that's what Rashi is saying, that they were. What's their chshivas? Their chshivas is that they were that. They were even more than Laskanim. They were like every time there was like an important congregational matter, they were the ones that were summoned. But in a way, in an advising way, in like a troubleshooting way, any important matter that faced Klal Yisrael, they were the ones who were called. Now, what's wrong with that? So the Rebbe says in base, it's difficult to read and to learn that Rashi is saying like the above two explanations. Why? Now, according to the first one, I would think that the Nesiim were the ones who summoned. So, and then Rashi is coming to tell us, no, Eila Kriya Eida doesn't mean that they were the ones that summoned, but rather, Kriya Eida, they're called, what does it mean they're called Eida? That they were, that anything Chashiv, they were called in. So if that's what Rashi meant, Rashi gedarf matik sein von Pasuk blaze them word Kriya. If that's really true, Rashi just explained to you what is Kriya Eida, not that they summoned, but that the Hanikroim the Chodav Chashiv Shabeda on Mefarer sein Hanikroim. So Rashi should have just quoted from the pasuk Kriya and explained Hanikroim, the ones who are called. And the Rebbe says in the brackets, Oich, additionally, Oich because Sokadaitach was Rashi is Adrita Pirish. As Kriya made di was ruf and the Eda, and if Rashi is coming to negate a third pshat, that Kriya means that you should not think that Kriya means that they called the nation, but thus was the roof in the Eda, vice of the Chshivas. Because this that they call the Eda shows in the Chshivas, only they were touched up Rashi, as the Chshivas is an andre. And therefore Rashi says, don't think that the Chshivas was that they summoned the Yidden. Rather, what's the Chshivas? Hanikroim the Chodover Chshivas Shebeda. That any important congregational manner they were involved in. So the Rebbe says, "Das gufanet movement." It's not understood. Parshas is Rashi Sheld and Pirish. Why is Rashi negating this pshat? Das is the Chaniyim for Chshivas. It's a very, very important role. What's wrong with saying that they were the ones who summoned the Yidden? Counting, it's a very chashuv story. It's a very chashuv position. So the Rebbe says Muslim zog, and therefore we have to say, as das was Rashi learned nit dem Pirish in pasuk, as a roof in the Eda or nit as a mitzad dem is nit mitzad dem teichen Pirish. So so we have to say that the fact that Rashi is going to learn that it's not that the Nesiim called the Yidden, it's not because das is hepech Pirish hateva krui. Rather, because whatever Kriya means, it's the exact opposite of Kriya. Kriya means azay veren gerufim. What does Kriya mean? Kriya doesn't mean that they called, rather they were summoned. Nit azay rufim te'eda. So the Rebbe says nit moving. So the Devas darf das Rashi bechal shel sein. Why does Rashi have to tell me bechal that you should know that don't think that the Nesiim were the ones who actually summoned? Das is the moving matzah. What does Kriya mean? Kriya means they were called, not they called. So why would I think, Rashi, based on this Pirish, that you should know that not that the Nesiim were summoned, not that the Nesiim summoned, but they were summoned. That's what Kriya means. The Rebbe says also, also the second explanation is also difficult. In dem Teichen Kriya is nicht angedeit as the Nikroim seine Niedrige. Mitzad dem was a very gerufen for the Nikroim. Now, being summoned does not necessarily imply that those summoned are of lower stature, by the fact that they are summoned by someone who's summoning them. Is farvos mishel dem learning azay. So why would Rashi need to negate this interpretation? Es kann doch sein as meruf zei und mekert zei sich zu zei zu dem Shivas. It could be that we're summoning and approaching by the congregation. Why? Not because they're lower, because of their prominence. So basically, according to these two Purushim, I would never, first of all, Kriya Edom means that they were called. And according to Rashi's second Pirush, that they were the ones that called, and therefore Rashi has to come along and say that you're saying that Ele Kriya Edom, you're giving Chashivas, it's still a Chashiv thing to summon other people, because maybe the reason why they were summoned is because they were princes. So Rebbe says in Gimel, Weiter auf in zweiten Pasuk, Vayigach Moshe v'Aaron es hanoshim eila asher nikvu b'shemes. So in regards to the next pasuk, it says that Moshe and Aaron took these men who had been designated by their names. Rashi explains that what does it mean? These men, Rashi explains, as shneim osir nesim alalu. He says that this refers to the 12 princes. The Nachstalter sich auf die Werte asher nikvu und es mefarish loi kan b'shemes. And then explains. So first he says that asher nikvu asher anoshim eila is the 12 tribes, and he then references the words who had been designated and explains they were designated by their names to him. In other words, Moshe here. So what does that mean? Now in Mefarshim Masber, so some commentaries explain, as from the Arichas Haloshna Pasuk, this that the Pasuk says, Vayikach Moshe v'Aaron es hanoshim eila, that Moshe and Aaron took these men, unit Vayikach oisa Moshe v'Aaron. Why not just say clearly that Moshe and Aaron took? Why does it have to say Vayikach Moshe v'Aaron es hanoshim eila? Bald mahalt in reden wegen at die Nisim. If we're speaking about the Nisim, so just say Vayikach Moshe Vayikach oisa Moshe v'Aaron. Hat gekent seine Kasogadait, so you would think, as does an andere Anoshim nicht die Nisim welche seinen ausgerechnet früher. So you would think that the 12 men that we're speaking about is a different 12 men. Und asher nikvu b'shemes meint andere Menschen, was der Eberste hat nekiv gewähnt, sehr nehmen zum Beispiel bin früher b'makamacher. And you would think that what asher nikvu b'shemes means that there were other men, not the 12 men that were listed previously. So is Rashi das Sheilel und sagt, as das wären gemeint, die 12 Nisim halalu. So therefore Rashi comes along and says that these were the same 12 men. Und asher nikvu b'shemes meint nicht b'makamacher, nor loy kan, zum Moshe und da rufen on. So therefore Rashi negates this interpretation, and he says that the intent of the pasuk is the 12 princes, and designated by their name refers not to the men elsewhere, but rather those designated by their name to him here, to Moshe, then and there. So the Rebbe says, "Aber sehr schwer zu sagen, als Luder hat Pirsch Rashi wollte gewinnen haben, min als der Pasuk da, beimtza die Barichas wegen die Shneimah Nesim, was meint mit Vayikach, so Nashim Eila, andere Menschen." So it's still very difficult to say, in the middle of the Pasuk, speaking about the Shneimah Nesim, that Rashi means, or the Pasuk means, other 12 men. Doesn't make any sense. Nit ha'ela. Die Eberdemonte was der Eberster hat geheißen. Und noch mehr, der Pasuk soll nicht sagen, befehlisch, wer sie seinen, nor soll auf sie andeuten mit Haremes. So Nashim Eila, schon nicht beschämt, nicht sagen, dich wegen Wemens, es redet sich in Rashi, soll davon Sheilel sein der Pirsch. So the Rebbe says, it's difficult to say that, if not for Rashi's explanation, you would assume that this lengthy discussion of the 12 princes, and the pasuk says that these men is referenced, like we said, to other men. And furthermore, even if one would accept this interpretation, how do it make sense that the pasuk would never have actually explicitly informed us about these people, only referring to them in a hint? These men who had been designated by their names without actually saying whom the discussion is about. Would Rashi have to negate such an interpretation? Okay, so the Rebbe says, Ndalid. Let's do one more. The Rebbe says this, Ndalid. Andere Mefarshim learn, so other commentaries learn, as Rashi does nicht Sheilel HaKasochadaitach in Pasuk as does mean andere Menschen. Not that Rashi is coming to negate that it means other men, nor an Inyan and Havana Saksuvim. It's something more in the proper way of understanding the actual text. For Lashon, Vayikach Moshe v'Aaron es ha'anoshim eila es mashma as does and stam anoshim. Now, from the pasuk of ha'anoshim eila es mashma that they're just regular men. But ze genumen nicht der Far was they sein in Nisim, that we took them because they're not because of Nisim. And therefore Rashi tells us that why did we take them is because of their chashivas of Nisim. For what steht Tag in Pasuk as Anoshim Stam in Nisim und darf ankommen zu Rashi es ist ein genommen geworden als Yud Beis Nisim Alalu. Rabbi asks a very simple practical question. Why not just say that they were the Nisim? Why do you have to come along and say Anoshim and therefore you have to bring another explanation? Just say clearly the Nisim. Maybe we could do one more. Okay, yeah. We understand this by first prefacing several questions that arise when we start elucidating the psukim. Aleph. These two psukim, that these are the ones that summoned Moshe and Aaron, the Chayra, are like extra psukim. When again dem ersten Pasuk steht schon betrills inyan ve itchem yu ish ishtamata ish reiste vesa vesavu. Now, in regarding the first pasuk, it already stated at the beginning of this whole narrative that with you should be a man with each tribe, a man who is the head of the father's house. So is was kommt der pasuk da wieder einmal sehr metar sein bei Likkutei. So what's the purpose of the pasuk here? Again, describing their rank. We already said that there should be men with you, and they should come from each tribe, a man who is head of the father's house. So why would the pasuk have to go ahead again and start describing their rank at such great length? Nachmer, it's not moving my kamashmal under zweite pasuk. Also, furthermore, it's not understood what the second pasuk is teaching me. So it's doch Parshas as Moshe and Aaron haben ausgefolgt. Was the Eberstadt Zegeis, and it's obvious that Moshe and Aaron did exactly what Hashem commanded. As Mezei sollen sein, die Nisim aufzuzählen die Yidden. That with them that they should have the Nisim to count the Yidden. Und wie beribe mekaymes potato was stated that zelt nicht noch in Tziva as Moshe had mekayim given them Tziva Hashem when says move from Atzma. It's many times that Hashem has given a commandment to Moshe and Aaron. It doesn't say, and by the way, you should know that Moshe and Aaron did what Hashem wanted. Self-understood. Der Pasuk will da meizetam mefared sein. As Moshe and Aaron haben mekayim given Tziva HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'peil. Now, even if you want to say, for whatever reason, that the Torah wants to tell us that Moshe and Aaron were mekayim what Hashem wanted, wollt given genug zu sagen, vayasken Moshe and Aaron, oder akopanim vayikach Moshe and Aaron es anoshim meila. Was ist nötig der Hemshech hashnikvu b'shemes? So what's bothering Rashi, or what's this lashon hashenikvu b'shemes? If you want to tell me that Moshe and Aaron that they did what Hashem wanted, so just say simple. Or why does it have to say hashenikvu b'shemes? Okay, start.